Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here tonight with us. Today we have a special conversation, and so excited that you guys can come in. Uh, I am Dr. Ana Sierra, and I am a psychologist here in Washington, D.C. Small private practice here, group practice of Latinx counselors. We serve the Latinx community, and also the co founder of the Latina Healing Institute. After being in the field for 16 years, I think that we have come to a point where we wanted to gift, kind of the experiences and all of the tips and also the shared experiences in this retreat with you guys. So we're excited to talk a little bit more about one more aspect of ourselves today and get really dig in. I wanted to thank Alani and Jennifer for being here today, and please, ladies, take it away.
Yeah, and my name's Alani Bankhead. I'm a certified professional coach over at Mighty Sparrow Coaching. I specialize in helping women overcome imposter syndrome, and also the co-founder with Dr. Sierra of the Latina Healing Institute. And I am so glad that you guys are here today. We're so stoked to be having this conversation. My passion really stems from just the amount of suffering that I experienced. The first, it was probably about 15 years of my career, finally drove me to a place where my mission was protecting life. I used to work human trafficking, child sex crimes. I still do a little bit. I was a bodyguard. I worked counterterrorism operations in the Middle East and chased spies in Asia. And all that was really fun. But really where my heart lies is in just elevating people. We love people here at the Latina Healing Institute. And our goal really is to take all of our collective experiences, the tools, the tricks, what all the studies show, so that you guys can elevate yourselves and we can have these great tailored plans to help you heal and get out there and really let your light shine. And so we are really excited to have Jennifer here with us tonight to chat. Jennifer, could you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alani. So I'm Jennifer Salazar, and I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Arizona. I've been a therapist for close to 17 years, and off and on through those 17 years, I took on different roles. Clinical director. I worked in residential. I've done outpatient, adults, children. I mean, I've kind of run the gamut through mental health. I'm currently in private practice, and I see kids and adults. I really enjoy seeing kids the most. I had an opportunity to study with Dr. Bruce Perry, and I'm certified in his neurosequential model for caregivers. And so I really enjoy working with kids as well as adults, but my passion really is just elevating women of color, kids who don't have opportunities, and being able to be that support and help them through their journey of finding where they can feel their strength and feel empowered. I'm also a Kudandera. I I've studied with a woman named Elena Avila. Elena Avila wrote this book. I don't know if you can see it, Women Who Glows in the Dark. She was a very well-known curandera all over the world. She's no longer with us. I studied with Elena for 8 years, and have continued to practice as a curandera and weave in the traditional healing modalities that I have learned in with my clinical practice of Western philosophies. So that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing. That sounds like wonderful experience, and we're so glad to have you here to get into this conversation about just spiritual practices. Just and as Latinos, we have such diverse ways, right, of seeing spirituality, either from the way that we grew up learning that, or the way that we probably found ourselves later on in seeing what really speaks to us and how we can relate to others, the world, and divine being. So it's really exciting to have that. Jennifer, I actually wanted to go into, let's just dig into like the meat of it. A lot of people get, a little bit like they, I wouldn't say weirded out, but they kind of are hesitant to like really lean into maybe learning or seeing the perspective of curanderismo. What can you tell us a little bit about what it is and what it's not? Like, I'm sure you see people in your practice that are like, "Ooh, no, I don't want to do that."
Mhm.
And what does that even like mean? I like, what, tell us about it. What is it? What is not?
Sure. So Gurantismo, my great great grandmother was a curandera, and she was a partera mostly. And what that is the woman who delivered all the babies in the village. So she delivered all the babies. She actually learned from the Calvary, passing through the doctors that came with the Calvary had increased her knowledge that had been passed down to her from her ancestors, her curandis, the knowledge of curandismo, plus the knowledge from the doctors. So she was a yerba, she knew yerbas, herbs, she was a partera. So she was like the village doctor.
Mm,
And curandismo is rooted in science as well as our ancestral healing. So it it was a blend of Spanish, indigenous, native, Mayan, Aztec, and African healing modalities. Because when the Spaniards arrived, obviously they, had mixed with the indigenous folks, and then they were bringing over African slaves. And so all three of their healing modalities were a blend of Curandismo. It's very complicated, actually. We could spend hours and days and months talking about Curandismo, but it is not, it's not magic. It's not spells. It's, in fact, my maestra, Elena, would say, the only curse you have is the curse that you give yourself, right? She didn't believe in
mhm.
curses.
That's deep. That's deep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so we don't believe in curses, we don't believe in magic or spells. You can't come to us and ask us to put a spell on someone or a curse on someone. We just don't do that. Now, you might have heard of some people who will do that. Those people are not curanderas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know what they want to. They might call themselves a curandera or a curandero, but true curandismo is true earth healing. It is not about spells and magic and curses. And I need $500 more to take that curse off of someone. Right? We don't do that.
Mhm.
Those are charlatans. Those are not real
And I
curandera.
think I think that's one of the reasons why people become hesitant to anything
Mhm.
that has to do even with curanderismo, because there are so many like tarot readers and other people that promise to take your issues away in one sitting, and that's just not how healing works. And it's just I mean, even just the way we heal, that makes sense. It may, like, you cannot solve anybody's problem in one sitting,
Yeah.
and so many people want that quick fix too, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
For sure, for sure. And I love how also we were talking right before we went live just about how there's so many different types of curanderas. And so can you expand a little bit more on what that might look like?
Absolutely. So there are specialty areas within Gurantismo. There are parteras, which are the ones who deliver the babies. There are sobadoras. They do massage, but they don't just massage you. They also do like a lot of stomach maneuvering to help with empacho, which is, sometimes if you're constipated or you need to have some stuff moved around in there. So those are the sobadoras. There are the hierbas, the ones who the specialty is herbs, hierbas. And then there's the curandera that knows it all, right? The total, the one who does everything. And those are very rare these days, I think maybe I don't think I've ever met one besides, well, maybe not even Elena, maybe not even my maestra, because I don't know if she delivered babies. So there are specialty areas, and we take this very seriously. We study for years. There's apprenticeships. My apprenticeship wasn't even really over after apprenticing with Elena for 8 years. I spent more time apprenticing as a curandera than I did to become a therapist.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
So there's a lot to learn because it's, like I said, it's based in science, it's real medicine, real earth medicine. And
Mm-hmm.
we strongly believe that we have to uphold very strong ethics when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to curandismo.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think that I was sharing with you guys how, my experience with a sobadora because of, I think, I don't know, I think it might have been in Pacho. I don't remember. I was very little. But like even the knowledge of this, I remember back in when I was in Chicago, I had this client that um she thought, she was worried because her baby was coming in upside up, right? Like
Breached.
standing. And then like, the doctor's like, we're gonna schedule it for a C-section, and she didn't want to do that. So then the next week she came back and she was just relieved. There was no more I'm like, what are you? Did the baby like turn over? I knew that was the worry. No, she says, you're gonna think I'm crazy if I tell you. And I'm like, I'm not gonna think you're crazy if you tell me what happened. Did the doctor do something? And she's like, no, I went to this lady, and then she told me that the lady flipped her baby pretty much, and the doctor was like, wow, the baby moved. And she never told the doctor that she actually went to a curandera to get her baby flipped. I'm like, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are things that are based in the body, like knowledge of the body, knowledge of healing, and all of that. So I mean, if it took you longer to be a curandera than a therapist, that's a lot.
Seriously.
Yes. Yes.
Seriously. I'd love to hear a little bit more about like what does your practice look like kind of day to day?
So I don't necessarily do curandismo. I weave my knowledge of curandismo into my clinical practice, right? So
Mhm.
it's not like, pick, do you want a curandera today or do you want a therapist? It's more of just the knowledge of what I have. I weave it in, right? I'm very intuitive. I'm very attuned. I think with that ancestral mind of healing,
Mhm.
so I can pick up maybe on things that maybe other people wouldn't, just because of the way the lens I view things through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do practice as a curandera if someone wants to come to me outside of my private practice, just because I try to keep those just a little bit separate. Now, I will practice curandismo if someone asks me in my private practice and I'm seeing them as a clinician. If they ask, I will, but I don't necessarily just push it on people or say this is this is what I do.
Mhm.
If they ask, I will. And there's nothing, there's nothing, I don't go against any ethical codes by doing that. So,
Absolutely.
right, I stay within my ethics. And yeah, so my practice would look like, here's what a curandismo, if you came to me, a curandismo session would look like oftentimes. It looks very much like a therapy session in many ways. So the first thing I do as a curandera is I have a plática. So we have a talk. We have a session, right? We talk. We have a heart to heart, corazón cura corazón. We have a heart to heart. And
Mhm.
then I would do Olympia. So I would do a very traditional healing. And that really is about taking care of the person and their just taking care of them. And most people have never had someone take care of them. So Olympia could look like I'm washing your feet in hierbas.
Mm.
I'm cleansing you with um, hierbas with smoke. It could be that I'm using an egg. Sometimes we use an egg. Well, we do use an egg. So Olympia can look very different. It's not a stereotypical. I know a lot of people think Olympia is like this very dramatic thing, but it's really not. It's really me taking care of the person who came to see me.
Mm. Mhm.
And then we do a soul retrieval. Now this isn't all in one session because it's very draining, but then we do a soul retrieval where we call your soul back to your home, because which is you. We believe that when we have trauma, we're broken into a lot of little pieces and we're fragmented.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we call our soul back home. And those are very elaborate.
Mhm.
I've done soul retrievals where Elena had us marry ourselves and she put on this huge wedding literally this big wedding. We decorated for a wedding and we had to go marry ourselves. They're just very elaborate. So we use a lot of theatrics in the
Mm.
soul retrieval to actually bring home the idea of you're calling yourself back to be whole again.
Wow, loving yourself sounds like, a lot of self-love, self celebration. That can
Yes.
be super empowering. We have a question here on the audience, and I'll put it on the board. What about plants? My grandmother would also use plants to heal burns, sunburns, for example, aloe vera, tea leaves, plant leaves, as well as prayer and holy water. For us and for our family, it was all about helping each other to feel better, healing.
Yeah, so hierbas are used, plants are used. I'm actually, that is my specialty. In Western uh, philosophy, I'm actually a master herbalist. As a curandera, that is also my specialty. Is I specialize in herbs and plants. So I
Mhm,
use them daily, multiple times a day on myself. I sometimes recommend them to clients in my counseling session. Of course, I always say, check with your doctor, research it yourself. But I recommend using very plants that are very soft, not that really help just sustain the body and help to bring it back to strength sometimes. So yeah, plants and hierbas are used as a main staple for curanderos.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So I am super curious because obviously, we were already differentiating between Western medicine and all other medicines, right? And so I think what's initially came up for me a lot was, Eastern medicine has really made its way into like common lexicon, right? And I remember, I don't know, it's probably been 25 years when like yoga first started, like entered the scene. And I'd have family members be like, oh no, it's like satanic and like you can't do yoga and like all this other stuff, right? And now it's like, all these techniques like acupuncture and cupping and all those things, like they're just so much more mainstream now. But I'm loving this, idea of, especially as like a busy DC like professional, we're so stuck in like the Western view on this is what's right and this is what's everything else is like not right, right?
Right.
And I love like everything you're sharing is just so rooted in our culture. And so I'm curious like how you feel like as a woman coming to the retreat, getting to have this experience with you, what they can kind of expect as far as like being able to connect with that Latina side of them if they feel disconnected from it, right? But what kinds of outcomes can they expect? What do you typically see as far as like with the people that you work with?
So I would say expect to feel reconnected with your ancestors and with your Latinaness,
Yeah.
with with your ancestors, with your heritage, with your culture, with your heart.
mhm,
We're calling back ourselves. We're calling ourselves home, and sometimes we don't even realize that we're not fully present. That we're not connected. I actually just came from yoga. And one of the things that I do as I right at the end of yoga is I thank my ancestors. Thank you, ancestors, for supporting me today. Thank you.
mhm, mhm,
And that's just, it takes, a second just to stop and just really give thanks to the people before us who paved the way in so many ways. And there's so many sacrifices and they survived so much for us
mhm,
to be here. Um,
mhm,
so I think it's really about finding a connection with yourself. Every time I do Olympia, the feedback that I get, or Olympia soul retrieval platicas, the feedback I often get is I just feel so relaxed and so calm and just so
mhm,
connected. I feel really excited about my future was something I just heard. So I think the outcomes can vary, but I knock on wood, I've never had anyone say I feel worse or I hated it. So I hope that never happens.
Yeah.
The feedback I usually get is very positive, of just feeling connected and grounded and calm and happy. And
Mm-hmm,
so,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and by the way, Alani, cupping, so just speaking about some of the Western modalities that we see, actually cupping was done, our ancestors did cupping, and they did it with fire. So my great grandma and grandpa used to use cups, and they would light it on fire and then use that as the suction. I think some people still do that, but nowadays they have the suction like totally electronic or whatever. But cupping has been used by curanderas and curanderos for a very long time. It's one of our modalities of healing.
Yeah. You know, like when I was doing international work, like with Latin America, and I was kind of reconnecting with like how life was and how life is over there. And I used to hear a lot of this feedback in the psychology teams, you know, the folk healers, like how we don't use that as a resource because it is really part of the culture. And I remember this conversation I had with somebody who you know, was a folk healer in Bolivia, and he's like, you know, if we think about it, like we have been healing for longer than psychology's been here, than
Mhm.
like medicine's been here. So how can we not like take that into consideration, you know? And I was like, that is not just, you know, physically but also psychologically. We've been healing for so long that, you know, then and then we and then the interesting thing that I'm looking at is that if we think about curanderismo or curanismo, people might be like, oh no, that's something that, you know, we don't know about too much. But then again, there's this whole movement in the United States now of holistic health, and you know, get these herbs because they're good for you, get your turmeric, you know. But these people have been doing this for ages. And I'm like, why is that looked upon as so positive, and I'm gonna do that because it's
Mhm.
like the trend. But it's been there for so long, and even in therapy and in medicine, we've like neglected that to incorporate that in there in the way of healing. That, you know, now it's like the Reiki and all these other amazing things, they're great, but
Right.
they don't come from nowhere. They come from a place, from a root. And we have to like look at like what drives us to try things. Right now it's trendy, now it's okay because the majority of the American culture is doing it. uh so that has to do with kind of also like being like our identity, right? Like reconnecting to ourselves really
Yes.
is where we belong, you know, like for me at least, you know, I think.
Mhm.
Right.
I was just going to say, speaking of, it being popular now, when I was in school to be a therapist, I remember talking to a couple of my professors and saying I really wanted to bring my knowledge of Gurantismo into the work I do. And I remember all of them saying, you better think twice about that. You better talk to
Mm,
the board. That's really a slippery slope. And
mhm.
it scared me. So I didn't use it for many years. I didn't even talk about it. And I worked in a Chicano, it was called Chicanos por la Causa. I even worked with Chicanos, but I still didn't use it because I was scared. And then one day I was like, wait a second. The board and our ethics are to be culturally competent, to be able to provide what our clients need culturally. Well, the many of the clients I was seeing wanted that. So, and now there's a big push to that. It's, now I'm seeing, a ton of therapists incorporate traditional healing or Reiki into their practice. And now it's a lot more acceptable. But just, 17 years ago, it wasn't. It was a taboo. Like, you don't do that. So I'm glad it's opening doors in many ways. In many ways, it is a little scary that I think it is so popular that people sometimes don't have the knowledge of how to use herbs and how to use herbs are very potent, can be very potent. And when you don't know how to use them, they can make you sick. And so I love the fact that it's open doors, but I'm also a little concerned that people don't have the knowledge sometimes to use them the way they should. So I think it's about educating our folks, educating people and letting them, just have the opportunity to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. Oh my goodness. This whole conversation is just so awesome. I mean, for a lot of different reasons, but so I'm curious. So you're obviously going to be at the retreat, and we're really excited to have you to provide this opportunity for women to reconnect with that part of their past. So if there was somebody that was on the fence about it, right? Because it is an optional activity if they want to choose to do that or not. What is it that you would tell them about like the opportunity that presents itself?
To listen to their body and their heart, it knows what it needs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yes. And that's something that we've definitely talked about in the past of with the retreat coming in, obviously examining all of your past and getting that really unique insight into what it is that you need to heal. But more importantly, we know what we need to heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw a post on LinkedIn earlier today of it was a guy holding one of his antidepressants,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about like, oh, I've been taking this pill for the last 18 months and it's really helped him, which is great, if that's helpful for him. But he talked about a buddy of his who had checked himself into a mental health facility because he was thinking about committing suicide. And, it was a take care of yourself, take care of your buddy, check in on each other kind of thing. But I couldn't help but wonder, like, Western medicine can be really helpful in a lot of ways, but like, why don't we treat the root cause of what's causing that pain rather than treating the symptom, right? And so obviously, like, the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors that we have come from these fractured parts of our spirit, right? And so yeah, I just love that you're reflecting back how no, we know best how to heal ourselves, and it's just a matter of which tool works for you, and what are you willing to try. So
And thank you so much for that, Alani, because yes, I think when I was describing Gurantismo, one important thing that I definitely left out is that as a curandera, I treat the root cause. I try to get to the root cause. I treat you as a whole person, mind, body, spirit. We welcome whatever religion, whatever spiritual practices, you bring them in. We don't deny them. We're not biased. You bring that in with you. We encourage that. And we treat you as a whole person. And so, as a clinician, that's the lens I look through. I look through that lens of treating you as a whole person, not just a brain, right? So,
Yeah.
it's so important.
That is wonderful, because it is one of the things that I think when I even felt like I started healing myself, it was really reconnecting to who I am, where I'm from, where who my people were, how strong they were, how and they are, because they're still there, they're still present with us. So, and that is something that it's just so powerful to know that that they don't leave your side, and they kind of walk this whole thing with you. And that there is, they're kind of looking at you and seeing, what, you fulfill the dreams they always hope for. And for somebody, even in, for a woman, like, in my where I'm from, it's impossible to be, not impossible, but really hard, and a lot of barriers to get through and hoop through, and even here in the United States too, for somebody like me. But I think about it and I'm like, they didn't just pass down trauma or intergenerational trauma. They also passed down all of these amazing strengths that I haven't even looked at. And I
Yeah,
have to go in there and look at them and learn them and embrace them, and really get to know myself more, because it's not all just the bad stuff that we're told that happened. Yes, bad things happen, and bad things, they endured so much, but there's so much more strength, because we're still here, they're still in our blood, running around in the
that's
spirit.
right.
So it's just empowering to know that you have that much power walking around. And sometimes we like become so doubtful, right? This imposter syndrome. We become so like
Mhm.
paralyzed by what other people may think of us, or may like see if we're good enough or not good enough. But like when we realize the power you hold, and the people behind you, and getting you through, it helps. It does something to your energy,
Mm-hmm.
um that is, takes some time in therapies. And I love therapy. It's great. It's definitely a great tool. I am a therapist, obviously. um but it's incorporating it all, because we're many parts, we have a spirit
Yeah.
too.
Yes, I love that. And I think too, it's about more than just us, right? Is your point, Anna? Is our ancestors went through so much struggle. They also hoped so much for us, and they lived their lives so the next generation could have it better. And
Mhm.
I know there's a saying, I can't remember which Polynesian culture, it might be the Maoris, but they say like, your responsibility is to be a good ancestor to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us to be able to see outside of our immediate circumstances and know that we've been given this gift, and it's our responsibility to be as whole as possible, right? To do that work so that we can continue breaking the chains of past trauma, generational trauma, and also being able to pour into the next generation in a whole, like really loving, enlightened, light way, right? And that actually brings up a really great point about spirituality as a whole, right? So like, obviously a lot of people in Western culture might consider curanderismo as something like very woo-woo and, like not acceptable or whatever. But the point of the retreat, the point of these conversations is to figure out what works best for you, and what for you as an individual resonates, makes you feel whole, feels right. Because I know from personal experience, I was in the military, right? And so like very white male dominated world. And I love my white boys, like love y'all. But but I definitely felt very divorced from myself during that space because I was so busy trying to like not see the color and not see the gender. I mean, that's what they do in the military. You're a unit, you're not an individual, you're part of the whole, right? But it wasn't until sort of examining the spiritual beliefs that I had around who I was, like even like Christianity, which I practice, like, do I really believe that God is who he says he is, right? And that's the point of these conversations, is to really get outside of like, what is it you believe? Why do you believe it? Is it something that you really want to believe? So I'm curious what you guys think about that whole other section. So
Yeah, I do think that, being in spaces that are very confusing, kind of like throw you off in many ways, identity, spiritually, direction of your career too, everything. Um, and a lot of people do suffer in that space. I did too. I would think about just questioning, especially when we had some challenges with the political turmoil years ago, when a lot of stuff were happening about, our people becoming targets, more of a target in this. And then like seeing Christians, attack and support that. To me, that I'm a Christian too. So that, to me, that kind of shattered a little bit of that hope that I had in Christians. Me being a Christian, like how can you have so much hate for people, and if you believe in an all loving God, So for me, spirituality really became more of, what, my relationship with the divine, and that's what I'm going to walk with. And then also looking at other parts of myself. So years ago, I started looking at more of, who were my ancestors. I did this DNA test, to find out more about myself, where I come from. But like, there's not enough data, of course, to know so much far back. But really exploring more of like, did I learn this and that's why I believe it, or were we were colonized to it, right? In Latin America. And then where we're at as a Latina, where does that place me, like in my identity and my purpose? Am I making decisions based out of things that are just learned and I have never questioned, right? So it's really a journey. It's a journey to walk into that space. I don't know what, how, and Jennifer, I'm just curious because, you've been practicing for a long time. How did you land at it quickly or faster?
How did I become a curandera? Is that well, my great great grandma was a very well known curandera. Like I said, there's been books written about her. And it's supposedly the gift is supposed to have skipped a generation, and it skips generations, right? So when I was always growing up and still today, I always wanted to just be an actress. That was it. That was my goal. I just wanted to be an actress. And I am. I do stage theater, but I'm not, not what I thought I was going to be. Um, and so one day when I was in my undergrad in a women's studies group, we read Elena's book. I encourage everyone to get it, Women Who Glow in the Dark, Woman Who Glows in the Dark. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to be an actress. I always knew I had a gift, but I didn't want to do it. And then the book was here, and one day I said, I got to do this. I looked up Elena's number. I don't know how, because I don't even know if I had internet back then. And I called her up on the phone and I said, I want to be a curandera. Can you teach me how to be one? And she laughed. She thought that was hilarious. And she said, yeah, that's not how it works. You have to have a gift. You have to come and meet me. Like, I don't just take on apprentice just to take them on. So I went to her work. She used to put on these big workshops, and I went to one of her workshops and I got to know her. Then I went to another one, got to know her, and she said, I'm taking on my last group of apprentice. This will be the last group I ever teach. I will let you know who I'm going to choose. Do not contact me about it. I will let you know. So 3 months went by and I'm like, well, I guess I didn't get picked. And I was so upset, and I finally sent her this email, and I'm like, if you're not going to teach me, I'll find someone else who does, and da-da-da-da-da. And she emailed me back, and she says, Jennifer, you have the don. I'm going to teach you. And so then that started my apprenticeship with her. I went to Catholic school. I was raised Catholic. I very much believe in God, but I do believe there's a happy medium. I think there's room for everything, right? I practice yoga. I am a curandera. I love Ayurvedic medicine. Like, there's room for everything. I don't know if we have to pick one. I really don't know if Jesus or God or our higher being would say, you have to pick one and then that's it. I don't know if he would say that.
Mm-hmm. That's yeah, it's about what really calls you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a question here. To what extent is the Olympia about removing negative energy at all?
If at all. Okay. Yeah, well, that's the one of the main reasons we do Olympia is to help remove some of that negative energy. And so I do very lengthy Olympias. I actually had Olympia myself not too long ago from a curandera that I trusted. I don't know too many out here in Arizona. I'm from Albuquerque. I'm from New Mexico, and that's where I studied with Elena. But it was over like in 20 minutes, and I was like, what? That's it? So my Olympias are very lengthy because I want to make sure that we're really getting that negative energy, and we're really working on settling your spirit and getting your energy filled positive and protecting you from that negative energy.
Sounds amazing.
Would you say that what would you see that some of the interventions in therapy are similar to some of the interventions in Gurantismo? Where would you see that mirroring?
Oh gosh, it's so much. It's such a mirror. And if you read Elena's book, that's what she does. She explains, because Elena was a nurse practitioner in psychiatry.
Mm.
So she knew mental health very well. She spent many, many years in the mental health world. And she realized this isn't working alone. Like, this is not, we're not getting to the root cause of things here. So she went to Mexico, found her maestro, and studied for many years. And eventually she quit being a nurse because she just didn't feel like at that time there was room for both, right? So she had to make a decision. Um, But I mean, just even the simple fact of, there's a famous book out there right now called "The Body Keeps the Score" by
Yeah.
a very well-known psychiatrist,
Mm-hmm.
and he's touted as, oh, he's so brilliant, the trauma is kept in the body, and he brought that to light. Well, we've always known, our ancestors have always known that. I was taught that as a Gurindara. Our ancestors have always known that trauma, it stays in our body. That's why we have traditional healers, ancestral healers that do body work, because we know trauma lives in the body.
Mm-hmm.
um, so it's just as simple as that. Is a PTSD. We call, in Spanish, we call that susto.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We
Yep.
knew that susto, it shook us to our core and stayed with us, and we carried it around. And if we didn't do something to help relieve it, we would have illness, right? Well, that's the same thing as PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I love also that, like, really, and you mentioned this directly, but even indirectly, the whole conversation, you're talking about getting to the root of the issue, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely something that I think we're really proud of in how we formulated the retreat format is, like, I don't think we're in the business of doing surfacey happy things, right? Where it's like, oh, just like take a hot bath and like throw
Nope.
some cucumbers on your eyes. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, like when they start working with me or when they start working with a therapist, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
realize how tough it can be to go to that place, right? But it isn't until you bring all that stuff to the light that the real healing starts. And that's something that we're really proud of, and why we're excited to partner with you as well is like, yeah, this is root cause stuff. Like this is not a patch to like get you back into the office so you can be more productive. This is,
Okay.
we want to get women to a place of wholeness so they can flow and just be, right? Because when we're in that state of flow, things just happen. Like the opportunities suddenly show up because you're seeing things through a lens of joy rather than scarcity and, you know, all that negative energy and stuff. So yeah, this is really incredible. I'm like, oh, I'm like extra excited to
Yeah.
get this retreat going.
And I think that's been the pattern with all the experiences that we put together, right? Like every lens that we go into, it's like, I mean, you're going to question your, identity as, in your beliefs and what you were brain programmed versus have we really considered, taking a second look at that thought process, or about that belief that we have, or what are those things that keep us like stuck, right? In thinking that, many times when I, even just the concept of being Latina and that female gender role, just how we don't really question a lot of that. And I work with, many women that, you know they kind of felt like their lives is like they were just robots living in a
Mm-hmm.
body, where they felt like, well, they had to do this, in life, expectations of society, expectations of other people. Then the next thing is to get married, the next thing is to have children. Did I even want to have children? Did I even want to get married? But like they go through their lives living an entire life and then questioning later on, because you know as we mature, we become more, self-aware. I'm a lot more aware of our decisions that we've done. But like, I do talk to a lot of women that are like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even think I ever questioned if I ever wanted to even get married or have kids, or
Mm-hmm.
they don't regret the kids, obviously, but maybe the
Yeah.
marriage. But
Yeah.
it's just that we cannot. Sometimes we are on that autopilot and we're not
Mm-hmm.
aware. So that
Mm-hmm.
is why this is like not just like, oh hey, let's come talk about butterflies and breathe some
Yeah.
nice air. Yes, we'll breathe some nice air, but we'll also swallow some difficult you know you know que, como se dice eso, like that
The
become
pill.
aware of things that are might be
Yeah.
difficult. Hmm.
For sure. Yeah. And Anna, you're touching on another great point too, right? Is like the worthiness issues that we experience as Latinas. So like we've all experienced it on some level, right? That I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy, maybe I'm broken, right? Like the feeling of being a robot because you're not completely whole. And so, there might be some folks, and we've encountered them, right, that maybe they think a retreat like this, or encountering resources like Jennifer is what they need, but they're just kind of struggling because they're like, oh, can I take the time away from the family, right? Can I take time away from the office? For myself, it feels so selfish. But this is part of that healing journey, is making that first decision that I am worthy of taking the time to heal myself and going to that space where I get to explore for myself, like, am I actually worthy? You can start with that first question, right? And so for those of you who are struggling with that, like, we really encourage you, like, this is again about bigger things than just Anna, Jennifer, and Alani. This is about creating whole folks so that they can go out and do their life mission feeling whole and joyful and just putting their love out to the world. You know what I mean? And you have to do that from a place of wholeness. And it is a journey. And so we just really encourage you guys, like, bet on yourself. And, if you're not willing to do that, what is it costing you to stay in this place of pain, at the end of the day? And so yeah, I'm extra excited. And I'm just really grateful, Jennifer, for your gift, and, for having the courage to go out on a limb and do the thing that all of your mentors were telling you shouldn't be doing. Now we get to be encouraged by you. And yeah, just really grateful to have you in the space.
Yeah, I felt like, I felt like, Elena's spirit was here telling us her story through you.
Yeah.
She shows up a lot, that's for sure. Sometimes I have conversations with her.
I kind of almost felt like I was in, like, Encanto. Like, you got the gift, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I've never seen Encanto, so I need to see it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good depiction. But also, I also wanted to just tell to the people who are looking at this retreat and seeing, right, looking at investing in yourself, right? How much of, as a Latina, you would give up your leg for your child, right? If there was a retreat that will, like, give them an amazing, feeling of well-being and empowerment, you would do whatever to get your child there. But we struggle so much in trying to do that for ourselves, right? And I just wanna make sure that that's not something that's also keeping you stuck, right? We invest in ourselves. We love ourselves by giving ourselves these experiences because we are worthy and we do deserve it. And you know what? It's gonna be like that whole putting yourself first, right? And it's not selfish. It's
Well, Anna, the other morning on the news, I just heard something that really struck me, and I wish I remember the name of the book. So there was an author there talking about her book, but she said telling a mom that she's selfless is not a compliment. Right? So,
yeah.
we hear as moms, oh, you're so selfless. You're so selfless. It's so amazing. Well, that shouldn't be a compliment, right?
Yeah.
Women and moms have to be selfish to be able to continue to put that, the care that they need to in their children and their families.
Right.
And that's what I mean when we talk about, like, going about life as robots. So that feeling that some women have, because they're like, I never thought about myself. Like, their entire lives they're just living about others, needs of others. And then that's where we get self-esteem. We have to really rethink the way that we learn how to be a woman, and question it deeply, and find the power that we have in that.
Absolutely. And yeah, to your point with using the word selfish, it's not about being selfish even. It's about, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You just can't, right? The cup has to be full for you to pour out the love that you need into your family, into the world, into your work, whatever that might be. And if you're running on E, then that's where you really get into the trouble. So absolutely, we really have to rewrite that narrative. And I know, like, there's been a lot lately on self-care and all that stuff. And it's amazing that it's making a resurgence. And I actually think that, my personal belief, that's part of, like, with the pandemic, it's like churning up just like all this gunk that we need to deal with. And this is part of it you know, do you want to stay in that toxic job? Do you want to stay in that toxic relationship? Like what's going to work for you? And what does that even look like? You know, you can't rely on other people because again, the answer lies within you. It's just a matter of how do we get those answers out of you? So,
Right.
This is such a great conversation, and let's just take some time to talk about the retreat. Is coming up April 1st through the 3rd, 3 full days of amazing experiences. You know, you get to, have a lot of stuff going on, like we talked about in the last live. You know, so we have the trauma informed yoga. We have Jennifer joining us to gift us with all of that knowledge that we seek as well. We have Alani's amazing skills, of coaching and self-reflection and elevating you to that step. And we have, of course, the Marianismo, like the female gender role, like really deep reflective exercises to kind of go through and question, like, what are these? How do they play out in my life? And sit with that feeling. And on top of that, great food, great people around, and great, beautiful views. So I do want to encourage you to gift yourself that. And the deadline to sign up will be by next Friday. The 18th of March is the last day to sign up. So if you are thinking about it, if you've been thinking about it, just go for it.
sure. Absolutely. Yes. So we have limited space. So please sign up as soon as possible. But, this being the first one, we're really excited about it, but prices are actually going to go up after this one. So we really encourage you guys to take advantage this time around. And we're just really looking forward to bringing you this really just special opportunity for self-reflection and learning. We just put the workbook out for publishing, and we're really excited about it. It's beautiful and just feel like it really reflects us as people, and we're really excited to share that with you guys. So
Yes, and it is something that we're excited about because we're getting requests all over the United States from Latinas everywhere asking, when are we going to go to another state and do this? So we are looking to look into more opportunities out there as things go up. So take advantage of it now because you know join us. And also, like, it's just about being able to gift that to yourself. I do believe it's a self gift. Is No one can do that for you but you, right?
yes, amen.
Absolutely. And I just got to say, that spending 3 days with women who understand you, get you, know you, like feel you is such a healing experience just alone.
Yeah.
And I've been to many retreats, and I often felt out of my element, and I was like,
Mhm.
I don't really connect to this
Mhm.
very well. It just didn't feel the same as when I am connected to my ancestors, my sisters, my, you know,
Yes,
comadres.
Yeah.
así es. Well, thank you so much for being here, and everyone who passed by and said, and everybody who will watch this as well. You can feel free to reach us out. You can go to the website; it's going around at the bottom, latinahealinginstitute.com, to find out more about the retreats coming up. And we look forward to seeing you. That's all for me. I don't know if anyone else has some words to say goodbye. We're good.
No, yeah, thank you, Jennifer. This was wonderful. Really looking forward to seeing you in Middleburg. Thank you, Anna, for facilitating as always, and we'll be looking forward to seeing everybody in the audience at the retreat. So
Yes, thank you both. Thank you for having me on.
Have an amazing evening, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.